Hey there, Summer Sweet 53. I've been bouncing around for, gosh, over a decade to try and figure out what the right and correct diet is for me, what the optimal type of food and kind of strategies are to make myself feel good, and to have the output I want with input that is satisfying. And man, the journey's been long. So in 2011, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And from that point on, I kind of made a vow to myself uh, to do it right. And I came back out of chemo and radiation with a goal of trying to figure out what's good for me, because there's so many messages out there. So, I leaned on what I knew at that point, or what I thought I knew. And in 2012, for about a year, I was pretty much, and I shouldn't say pretty much, I was a straight up vegan with very, very strict adherence. And let's see, after about a year, I went to raw vegan, and that was interesting because everything I ate was raw. And, I'm also a teacher, so kids at school saw me go from, uh, the large and in charge individual that I was to a little bit smaller and a little bit skinnier, and I was kind of looking drawn out and pale and really low energy, believe it or not, even though I was eating so much uh, fruits and vegetables. But I remember one of my students said, "Hey, are you feeling okay?" And that was probably the time where I kind of wanted to reassess what I was doing. So um, at one point, I remember going to the store and finding a whole chicken, and I broke out the crock pot and I put the chicken in the crock pot, went outside to do some work, and I came back in hours later and the chicken was done. And I remember thinking, oh, I'll just have a little bit. I haven't had, meat or anything like that in a really long time. And man, that was the best chicken I had ever eaten. And that was a year and a half of just vegetables and fruit. Um, what did I learn from that? Well, from that point on, I was doing my research on what um, what my nutrients needed to be to get me to feel uh, like I had good energy, but man, I could actually get back into some pretty serious workouts. And my obviously my workouts weren't going very well, just because I had, believe it or not, low energy and bad recovery. And that was really hard because I was coming from a background in lifting from the time I was 12. So at that point, I was, oh gosh, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, in my 53. I was 40, around 40 years old when all this was happening. And I had just gotten done um, with my powerlifting about 2 years prior to that, and uh, and kind of dialed back my training because I just didn't feel right. I didn't have any energy, and though I was still, pretty strong, um, it was kind of a slow progression into what's going on with my health. So um, I ended with powerlifting, but my beginnings were, you know, always interested in bodybuilding, and I had all the bodybuilding magazines when I was growing up in the 80s, and those guys were my idols. Um, Obviously Arnold and um, Ronnie Coleman, and that era was a huge, um, kind of really really big, helped me be formed into the ideas of what I wanted for my body and my athletics, and so that's kind of my beginnings. And I did 4 bodybuilding shows between, gosh, I guess 1990, 95, September 95 through, I guess it was 98. Early 98 was my last bodybuilding show. So there were some years where I did that. Then I went back to school to get my MAT for teaching, and that means Masters of Arts in Teaching. So I'm a teacher. And then, fortunately, I ran into some people while I was teaching and coaching that inspired me to pick up Olympic lifting. So I dove into that for a couple of years, probably about 3 years, competed in Olympic lifting, and from there, I had a buddy of mine, John Anderson, who I grew up with, and he and I worked out together a ton when we were younger. He was my workout partner and through high school and through college, and so he had started doing strongman at that point, and I remember going to his first contest with him and seeing him pull jets and all that stuff, and that was really exciting for me. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe I can do some of that stuff. And luckily, there were at that point 2 different weight classes. There was a heavyweight, and there was also the lightweight weight class. And I was, of course, going to be in the lightweight weight class because I was 5'8", and the top end for that weight class, I believe, was 220. So I ate and lifted my way up after Olympic lifting into 220 pounds. And I'd been there before because I had done bodybuilding, and I bulked up to 245, 250 before some of my contests. And so it wasn't that foreign for me to get up to be that big, although it's not very comfortable at 5'8", let me tell you. Hard to tie your shoes, and you're out of breath a little bit, and your feet hurt when you're standing all day and that kind of thing. So after strongman, I decided that I needed some simplicity, because sometimes at those contests you're like, wow, okay, here are the events that are in the contest, and you're training for some of them, but sometimes you don't have access to a Conan's wheel, or sometimes you don't have access to stones, or to a proper log for a log press. So that was a little bit weird. So I wanted something where it was more stable and more simple, and that obviously was powerlifting. So I took I wouldn't say a right turn 90 degrees, but it was, still a strength sport, and it was a little bit off path from what I was doing. So I jumped into powerlifting, and it was, talk about simple: bench, squat, dead, and variations of those, and rinse and repeat, and just keep lifting and eating and building. And so that's where I kind of ended my journey of competition. That would have been 2007 and 2008-ish, right around there. I had knee surgery back through that time, and I remember coaching football and preparing for a powerlifting competition that I was going to. And gosh, that's hard doing all that at once. Being a dad, being a husband, and training and coaching and teaching, and boy, that was hard. Well, about that time, I figured out that I had a year and a half later, 2 years, I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, and I had stopped coaching football at that point. And so from that point on, my discovery of that kind of defect in my health, I wanted to take as much control as possible and not be a victim and just wait and see what the doctors want to do. I decided to be very, very proactive in my own health, and I recommend that for everybody. Be proactive in your health. So post chemo and radiation, it was all vegan, vegetarian, even raw vegan for that 6 months. And then I decided, wow, something's not quite right with my energy, with my recovery, with my overall health. Though I lost weight, I did not feel healthy. Surprisingly, with all the carbohydrates that I was taking in, I just was not able to recover. And, put that on chemo and radiation and kind of winning my health back from that point. Uh, that was hard. So my foray into the chicken in the crock pot idea was, um, I had seen on YouTube somebody talking about the GAPS diet, which is a diet where it's a slow introduction of cooked vegetables, but majority meat, bone broth, um, whole meat, whole chickens, all the tendons, and really working on restoring your health from your digestive system on. And if there's anybody who needs to regress and rebuild their health, I do recommend that diet. It's pretty darn good. It's not a lifetime diet, but it's a way to intervene to get your momentum back in your health. So highly recommend it. But from that point, um, probably about a year and a half to 2 years later, after being obviously very strict, because I'm a disciplined guy. Um, Motivation is fleeting, but discipline is forever. If you learn to be disciplined, boy, that's a skill that can always be accessed if you have it. So, year and a half of that, and then I heard about the ketogenic diet and heard about its relation to um, decreasing your um, potentialities for some cancers. So that was a big deal for me because, psychologically, when you're coming from that uh, that place emotionally where you're always thinking about, oh my gosh, is it going to come back? That's a hard place to be. So if you can find ways to cope with that by, garnering some type of control, whether it's false, whether it's true, it's what makes you feel better. Access that, use it, leverage it. So uh, that ketogenic diet was kind of a great jumping point for me, and really doing the deep dive to learn all I needed to learn about nutrition and the way your body uses fats and the way your body uses proteins and what cancer actually uses for energy. And I can remember I went in for several, well, I think they're called, it's not a CAT, it's not an MRI, oh, forgive me. It's a scan where they inject you with a bunch of radioactive sugar. Don't remember what it's called, but such a long time ago, thank God. But I can remember asking them why the sugar, and they told me because the cancer actually pulls in the sugar readily. It prefers that sugar over any other substrate, protein or fat or anything like that. So they attach a radioactive molecule to the sugar, and they can track exactly where that sugar goes to identify whether your cancer is active or whether it's um, not active anymore. And obviously I'm here and my cancer is not active, but that idea of sugar, that really stuck with me. So the ketogenic diet was something that I very, very much wanted to understand. So for about, oh gosh, I'm going to say 3 years of doing the ketogenic diet, that was pretty strict. There were times where I would obviously come in and out of ketosis and kind of mess around with my macros a little bit to get myself back in. But I can remember one time I had some sort of blood sugar event where I was, oh gosh, on a run, and I had a ton of fat that day and thought I was going to be just fine. But man, I didn't think I was going to be able to drive home. And I have never had any sort of blood sugar event, but it was like dizzy, felt like I was going to throw up. The world was spinning around, and Luckily, it calmed down after a while, but I thought I was going to have to like have somebody, and this was at school after work, doing my run after school in the wintertime, so it was hard. Um, but that stuff aside, uh, really that was a good diving point for me to get into kind of the physiology, the metabolism of all the macros and the things that you need to be healthy. So post keto, um, Dr. Sean Baker starts talking about the carnivore diet, and that was, gosh, another year and a half of, actually a full year for me first of being straight carnivore. I went from keto to carnivore. Um, Probably literally all ground beef. Yeah, there's some chicken in there, but um, and that was interesting. I got super shredded. My gym was a little bit meh. Uh, I really don't think I put on any muscle, and I train hard, guys. I really train hard, and I'm very, I wouldn't say science-based, but I understand the body and I understand what it needs, intensity and volume-wise, all the principles and variables that you need to throw in. So post-carnivore, probably 2 years of that, and then COVID hits, and I'm throwing up my hands like, wow, okay. So not only do I have to figure out a place to work out, but I've got to figure out something that's sustainable. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just go back to a straight up bodybuilding diet, carbs, protein, fill the rest in with some good micros, and go from there. And that's when I actually started to grow a little bit. Well, I did put on body fat. I did bulk up quite a bit. It wasn't comfortable, and I I don't regret it because it's a good learning experience. But that time, probably 2.5 years, so I'd bulk up and then I would cut down for the summer, and the next year I would bulk from about winter time, Christmas time to about beginning of June, and then I would cut down from beginning of June through the summer, and then I would start a slow progression into a bulk in the fall to winter time. So I put on some decent muscle, although I don't like being overweight anymore. It's not good for my sleep. So here's where I make the change. I've been desperately trying to find out why I don't sleep well. I've got my nutrition, I think, dialed in. We'll talk about that in a second. My workouts are dialed in. I do cardio. Um, I'm very meticulous about all things. My wife and my kids can vouch for that. Even the kids at school will vouch for that as far as my teaching style. But I'm looking for something that's going to help me rest. Rest. Yes, rest. So that's the main thing of what my focus is right now. Um, I'm trying to do something drastic because I'm at the point where I pretty much tried everything dietarily. I've taken time off from training to see if that helps reset my cortisol, my immune system, your parasympathetic, sympathetic drive, like all of that. That did not help. Um, I've cut caffeine. Um, I've just dialed it back a little bit. I dialed it back a lot. I've went to bed earlier. I've done everything. Currently, I go to bed at 8:30 and I get up at about 3:30. So, some sleep, but I would love to be able to have my sleep be more, not even accurate, more correct. Feel more rested with the sleep I get. You know, I'd like to get 7 hours of sleep a night and have it be super restful and feel great the next day, but I truly don't. So I'm making a switch. I'm making a switch to a very crazy diet, and it's called the sugar diet. So the sugar diet is all fruits and vegetables during the day and some very, very lean meat at night. I plan to keep my protein. Let's see, I'm about 170 right now. Probably keep it at about 80 grams a day, and it's very, very lean, like chicken breast or tuna fish or something like that. And then my um, other caloric intake will be fruits and vegetables and sugars during the day. So I'm kind of following the Mark Bell pathway. I feel like we're on a similar path, and I do want to drop some body fat, but I most of all want to see if this is going to help reset uh, my cortisol levels to where I can feel rested. So that's my journey. This is going to be my first installment for a video series that I plan to record, kind of my journey for the next, oh gosh, I'm going to give it a month, and I'm willing to do that. I'm definitely feeling like I'm playing this card. I only have so many cards left in the deck. So I look forward to hearing your comments, and I look forward to sharing more with you guys about my journey. And oh yeah, I'm sweating here. This is good. Yeah, I do a little cardio too. Just got done training chest and some shoulders. And tomorrow is legs and arms. I get to do legs here at the gym in the morning at 5:15. And then tomorrow I'll also train a little bit of arms with the kids at school. So that'll be fun. So look forward to hearing from you guys. Peace out.